Welcome to Meet My Friend with my friend Doug.
Hello.
I wonder if when I point that way, is it going the right way?
Well, when you went like this the first time, that was like pointing away from me.
Away.
And
Yeah,
said,
but you
"Hey."
are. Yeah, but you are over there though, technically.
Yeah, I know. It's just funny.
Or is it over there?
Folks, pre-production, live and in person.
Ooh, it's been we are the day after Memorial Day, in 2020, the pandemic year, and I don't know, it was a crazy weekend. I'm not going to get into that, but it was kind of interesting. Today we have, speaking of interesting, today we have Zach Rosen. You can see down there Zach Rosen beer. I met him at the Beer Blogger conference. This guy is interesting on so many levels. It's going to be fun. It's hard to, like, an hour's not going to be enough. That's what we try to keep it to here. But with Zach, it's just going to be really good. This is just another quote treasure that I met at the Beer Bloggers Conference, which, Doug, I don't know if you know, I saw a post today, but it's still on the Beer Bloggers Conference in August. They're still trying.
Yeah, we still haven't heard an official word on Fresh Fest either. So
no, they're still trying on that one too. But other ones are giving up, like
GABF.
And right. So it's just interesting how everybody deals with it. Everybody has their own way to deal with the pandemic. So without further ado, why don't we just cheer this place up here?
Yeah.
and bring on my friend Zach Rosen. Zach.
Hello there. Cheers, guys.
Cheers to you, man.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, my background is showing that this is a place I want to be. We're working on this. This is where I want to be. This is where Zach and I have hung out many times. I couldn't even imagine not hanging out and having a beer with you, man. So it's cool that we can able to do this. This is kind of like a Zoom virtual. Like, I'm hanging out with my friends and having a beer for a half an hour. It's fantastic. Thanks for joining us. So for people who aren't familiar with you, we have to go through. Let's just always start with the beginning, which is, where did you find craft beer? And, how did you find, like, where did craft beer find you? Because I usually expect that people, craft beer finds them, not the other way around. So we'll start there and then we'll get to everything else.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, well, so, I work with these abstract beer pairings. So, pairing beer, not just with food, but music, movies, and art. And I definitely didn't start off that way, but I certainly, found myself on that path pretty quickly. It's to be honest, it's best not to get into too much math about when I started studying beer. But, by the time I was looking for colleges, I was already set on going to UC Davis, and I wanted to study fermentation science. I wanted to go straight into my brewer certificate. And what happened is my sister was going to UC Santa Barbara, and I'd come up and visit her. We're very close. And, she worked at this amazing restaurant that was called the Dutch Garden, and it was founded in 1926. It's still the original building, the bar, the stove dates back to the 40s or 50s. So, I mean, it's this almost, it's now over 90 years old restaurant that's been continuously operating. And if Global Beer Network, we went and toured them. I think, gosh, what Beer Now conference was that? Was that the Indianapolis one? I don't know if you were on that one. But, they are one of the big Belgian beer importers. And so the guy who started that, Johnny Ficione, lives in Santa Barbara. And, it was largely being operated out of Boston. But then he, for his daughter, came out to Santa Barbara. So this random little restaurant, we don't have any advertising. It would be the trial run for Golden Jock, Perrot, all these beers. He wanted to see whether to bring them in. And this little restaurant that, basically no one's heard of was the testing ground for a lot of these beers. And my sister was working there at the time. And so, I'd come up and visit her. And then when I was coming up, and I got very close to her bosses. And so Lori, who owns the restaurant, it's a husband and wife, Ken and Lori. She sat me down and said, Zach, look, you're 17 years old. You can't even legally drink. You don't even know if you really want to do this beer thing the rest of your life. Come to UC Santa Barbara, where I had gotten into. study chemical engineering, it can still apply towards the brewing certificate, still fully integrates right into fermentation science, all those things. But you have your family here. Plus, if you come out here, you already have a job. And she hired me right there. That sounded very reasonable for me. And that brought me out to Santa Barbara. And so, through all those years pursuing my degree in chemical engineering, I was really, I was doodling about beer the whole time. And so, still attending classes, but I had never was set on becoming an engineer. I always was doing it for the beer. And so, of course, Stone IPA was the beer that turned me on to beer. I had it, drinking it with my sister, and it just blew my mind. I never knew anything could taste like that. And then, for my engineering certificate degree, when I was doing that, for my reaction engineering class, we had to interview an industry person. Well, I chose Mitch Still, who had just been hired at Stone at that time. And so that was the first brewer I interviewed just for a school paper. And so just kept down this road for years. And, I started home brewing, and look, don't get me wrong, love home brewing, love brewing. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't want to clean for a living. It's like I have way more fun just drinking the beer and talking about the beer. And so, once again, I was so happy that I didn't go straight for fermentation science and brewing, because I had, who knows if I would have ended down that same path. And so, as I was studying for, I knew I still wanted to do beer. And then the certified, the Cicerone program came about. When I was studying beer, there was no Cicerone program. And so all of a sudden, as soon as I heard that, it just opened up my eyes, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to be. I want to be someone who talks about beer, educates beer, works with beer, but doesn't necessarily, I can work with brewers, but I don't always want to be the one brewing it, and cleaning the tanks and scrubbing things. And so I'm a creative person. I'm a little bit sloppy. Let's be honest here, right?
I'm gonna leave that comment. No, but I do want to jump in here real quick and add two quick comments. It sounds like your journey into this industry and into beer was the complete opposite of mine, which was I started my life wanting to be an engineer and not having any idea about beer at all. So then when that didn't happen and I became an at-home dad and took a different path in life, I ended up coming back to beer and learning that it was so much science and it was chemistry and all that. So when you said that I was going crazy, because I'm like, yes. And I don't think people feel that or see that, or, anybody walking in a normal pub don't know that most of their brewers are chemical engineers or civil engineers, or, I was an aspiring aerospace engineer. So, it's just the engineering and the science of it all that just completely blew me away. And also Doug and I were cheering on when you were saying about not being a home brewer, because that's where we are. That's what I feel.
Love, but
no. But again, though, I think the industry has enough room for all of us, Zach, is the beautiful thing. Because with all due respect to brewers, a lot of them are geniuses and they're creative as hell when it comes to their beer. But if you ask them to do a social media post, that's where the creativity ends. So I'm not trying to be an idiot, but creativity sometimes is I don't want to say it's a box, but some people are good at certain areas of it and some people aren't. And I don't, you probably may not be good at the recipe part of it, but you're absolutely fantastic about the part of bringing in my opinion, you're fantastic at the part of bringing in people who aren't normally beer centric and showing them that beer is a thing that is really, really universal and big. And I just had two comments, and I'm going to let my friend Doug give a follow-up question. I don't know, Doug, if you have anything, but if not, we can.
I have stuff to ask. Don't worry.
Okay.
You're not getting taken to the principal's office or anything. So,
yeah.
So I just found it interesting when like I said, I didn't have a lot to lead up. My wife and I have been building garden beds for a week, and I'm wiped, so I did not do enough research before the show. I've been sending great pictures. I've been grumbling because it's super hot out. So with the Cicerone program, you went in and you were at one point the youngest Cicerone.
Yes.
That-
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I ended up taking it was the second time I took the exam, but I ended up taking it on my 22nd birthday and actually passing. The first time I missed by 2.9%, so close. But had I passed that first time, that was like 3 months or something right after I turned 21. So it's like, but that's what I was really happy that I didn't pass my first time, because I knew that draft dispensing was my weak point. And had I been able to slide under the radar with a weak point and got through the exam just having enough higher scores on other things, I think internally I wouldn't have believed in the program as much. And the fact that they caught me, I knew something was weak. I knew where I was weak. And it caught me. And so I went to the Micromatic draft dispensing program, learned all about draft dispensing. It was amazing, got to meet interesting people. And then I came back and I passed that part and got my certified Cicerone title. So, it really, in the end, it made me believe in the exam far more by not passing that first time.
Boom. And I can say I took that course. It's fantastic. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, and it's like, the whole Cicerone exam is based off of it for good reason too. Now they have a few other influences, but like the original draft dispensing was basically, taking a lot from the Micromatic program, because they've really, that's what they know better than anybody, really. And it was
Go back now.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so as I was pursuing the Certified Cicerone exam, and, obviously when you're doing beer tasting and stuff like that, you're training your palate. And there's such a thing about, if you've ever done beer judging, you have to be very aware. There's about like 24 psychological and physiological effects that are happening when you're in that judging setting, when you're in a tasting setting. Behind me, I have several textbooks on the subject. It gets complicated. And so as I was trying to, sciencey, I want to like isolate my variables. I'm trying to whittle things down and isolate all these elements in my palate. And what was happening is I was knowing ghost in the system. I was knowing things fluctuate as I was working, and I was trying to figure it out because I thought I had a good understanding of where my palate was and how intensity levels and definitions. And what I found out is that what was changing is not necessarily the beer, but me. And I started noticing that the effect that my environment had on my tasting experience was influencing how I perceived those flavors. And once I saw that change, once I saw that difference, and that kind of, I love that, not a ghost in the machine, it's more like a butterfly in the machine. It's just causing chaos and transforming things in the most beautiful, soft, elegant, subtle way, but with really, really big impacts. And so once I discovered that, I quickly started, down, of course, the Cicerone program is all about food pairing, and there's so much to be said about that, and so much that I love all the work being done in there. But, I always kind of look at it, it's like, I don't want to eat every time I drink. I don't want to drink every time I eat. And so what happens is, looking at how we actually experience beer, you put on a music that you feel like listening to. You open the beer that you feel like listening to. You put on a movie. We naturally pair beers with our experience. And so how to design pairings that fit into that dialogue and basically steer into that conversation and put intention behind what your senses and what your environment are saying to essentially your brain, because we taste in our brain, not our palate.
Man,
that was deep. It was great. It was just deep. Like the thing is, like, for someone like me who doesn't really think in those sort of ways, like, yeah, I know. Okay, well, you have this. You have a stout with this, and I understand that part from a food, but you're right. Sometimes you put on a movie and I'm going to watch this movie, but I just want to have scotch with that, or I want to have this beer with it, or whatever. I don't even think of those things.
Well, and Zach just pretty much hit the nail on the head about who he is as a beer person, like in that last segment for me. And the reason is because he put on his presentation at the last beer blogger conference in Montana. Montana. And it was about I literally was texting him while he was giving the presentation. Doug, he was up talking, and I was texting him. He couldn't get it, but I was like, "Dude, we got to do it. We got to do a collaboration," because he was talking about how beer pairs with life, and how like I always, like when you come in, like the first thing about beer that I usually get is like beer pairings, and if you put an amber with a hamburger, man, the sensation and blah blah blah. So like that's the start of where Zach. That's the low level, Doug, where Zach starts. Like Zach talks about beer pairs with everything, and we've learned this a little bit, Doug, with Afro Beer Chick. She has shown us whether it be music or bourbon or whatever liquor she pulls, that's a mood. And so Zach, where does mood play in all this?
Well, and that is, so I do these events, right? And so it's one thing when you're looking at how something pairs with your internal state for yourself, because you understand yourself far better than anybody else is going to. But then when you're designing an event where you might have a couple hundred people attending, every individual there is feeling their own thing, is in their own state of mind. They had a stressful day. They had a relaxing day. There's all these other things going on. And so there's design elements of a way of, there's a term called synchronization. And so what you do is you put people through basically a bottleneck experience before they enter an event like that. And that gets all of their moods in the same line. And it kind of flatlines their emotions. So it's something like putting, a lot of times I'll put a musician right at the entrance. So as you're going through, and then you hit them right. Rule number one of any beer event: get beer in their hand as quickly as possible, right? And so, when you're designing these for a crowd, you have to think about how you're aligning all of their moods and just getting them out of their day-to-day life so that they can focus on this piece of art. Wow. And not just think about everything that happened. I mean, that's why they're attending too, is to, for just a few hours, I always say it's like, just give me 16 ounces of beer and I can take you to a whole nother world. So to just, there's a time element and a volume element, and to take them into new experiences, new moods, and help direct that with how you're pairing your beers. And so what'll happen for these events is I'm usually working one-on-one with all the local breweries. And so it's like, I have my relationships with brewers because of my writing. And so then what I do is, I've been doing this about 8 years now. So I have, personal relationships with each brewery. I know how they like to work, what they like to do with beer, what they don't like to do with beer. And I'll approach them and say, hey, I have this in mind. Do you think you could do that? What do you think about adding this? And we'll collaborate and design a beer to go with a very specific part. And so, one of my most popular events I've done is called the Santa Barbara Beer Garden. That happens at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden. And we pair beers with different sections of the garden. And you also have live music and food pairings all throughout. So you spend 4 hours in the gardens, and we have a beautiful botanic garden. It's all California native plants. There's a whole canyon with a redwood forest, a meadow, and then you have a desert section. So you can take people into little micro worlds and have the beers go through this. I use the term beer mapping as a general concept for how you're deciphering beer flavor and laying it over, whether it's a geographical region, or I've also done Shakespeare, so Shakespeare and beer pair, where you're wrapping these flavors over a character, and then you're designing 4 hours of Shakespearean performances where you're trying to hit these different emotional tones and hit these paces. So it's, I wish there was a clear answer of how to calculate for mood, but that is like, I think at that presentation you were mentioning, I think I called it the X factor or something like that, is the human experience. The individual is something that you can never calculate for. I once had a brewer bring up to me, he was, occasionally I'll step on brewers' toes with some of my thoughts. That, I've had a few brewers yelling in my face saying that I'm ruining beer. But to me, I think it's a good response to get that kind of emotion. But, someone asked me, it's like, well, Zach, you've done all this thought about how this goes with that goes with this. How do you know that's what they're getting? And my response was like, you just simply can't. And you can never calculate that. The same way a musician plays a song, they have no control over how that song is interpreted by the individual, the crowd, the audience. And so, yeah, they can try to put what they intend out, but it's always going to be perceived differently. It's an individual experience.
Mm-hmm. Man.
It's a lot.
Right. What's up, Doug?
So when you get these events, let's say, is it something you say, I'm going to put on an event and this is what I'm going to create? Or is it more like you get folks will be like, I would like to create an event. What do you suggest? Or do they have a specific thing in mind? Or is it any of those?
It's a little column A, a little column B. It was, I started off with movie pairings at one of the just coolest, most bitching bar in town, Mercury Lounge. And, shout out to Dawn O'Brien from there, because she gave me my start and was willing to just, basically give me full run of her bar. I did two different programs there. I had a beer school where I do these like 3-4 hours of just classes, food pairings. The last hour was always just kind of fun drinking, but we did everything from, all about wild fermentation and sour beers to the Trappist and monastery beers. For the sour beer one, that was the day Barrel Works was opening, and Jeffers actually left Barrel Works and brought one of the first growers to ever lead Barrel Works to that class, which was a huge. Yeah, he brought a Grauer Redeweiss, the first beer to really lead the which was a super huge honor. Yeah. So I mean, those were more straightforward educational. But then I did these movie pairings. So everything like Big Lebowski, The Princess Bride. And so we would do about 8 to 10 beers, I think, small pours. And then we would, in real time, as the movie was playing, we'd bring out these beers as they were pairing with the scenes, the moods, and the pace of that movie.
Man,
I just love just the idea of having that sort of like 10,000 foot view of that kind of stuff, because I generally don't operate in those kind of spaces. And just the idea of saying, all right, well, here's this scene in this movie, and this beer would go well with that. And the thing is, with like you said, mentioned in Big Lebowski, of course, everybody thinks White Russians and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So like, how do you like? So for instance,
how do you do a White Russian in beer?
Oh.
I did a black and tan. I used a Russian Imperial Stout and a wit beer. White Russian. They don't layer the same way, but the trick I found, I used Old Rasputin. So this unkillable heavy, and then I think I used Allagash White as the white beer. And to get them to layer, because they don't like to layer the normal way. And so I had to take a spoon and just barely put you pour the white beer first, and then you put the stout down the side of the glass, and it'll slowly. But it was a weird technique, and to do that for 40 people was like kind of hard. That one went over, but that was the welcoming beer as people entered. It's like, because that was a big question. It's like, wait, how do you do a White Russian?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so,
So that's like that's a sciencey part there, because you had to understand the idea of the pour and how to get the pour to make it look right and all that stuff.
Yeah. That was. Yeah,
that's awesome, Zach. So I'm going to ask a question I think eventually, if we sat here long enough, Doug would ask. So do you do any so I'm asking for Doug, even though Doug's like, what? So do you do any books and beer pairings? Because Doug's an author. So
yeah, I have a few pieces online about that on my just on my writing blog that can be linked through from ZachRosenBeer.com. And so definitely, I love, because, sitting and reading a book and drinking a good beer is such a match made in heaven, in my opinion. Like, obviously I kind of like books. And so that definitely, I've done a few of those, certainly.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got a follow up there?
Well, that's the thing is, for me, when I grab a book, I don't necessarily think of what I'm pairing that with. And this is like hearing you talk more about how do you address that. Like if you have a certain book, I don't know, War and Peace
Yeah.
Which is not something I would ever read for fun. But
yeah.
thinking about what do you pair with that, and then that's not something I would. Again, I'm relating it to myself, but I just find it fascinating that you can come up with things that, well, if you do this, this will really pair well with this particular scene or this character, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not really having a point other than I think you're fascinating on that
aspect. Well, like you mentioned War and Peace, and this is an interesting thing about like where it comes into expressionism, and this is why I love these kind of abstract beer pairings. More than just, I feel that the beer and food world is a lot more straightforward with what you can and cannot do. So like you think of something like War and Peace, automatically you might think of something heavier and darker and slower sipping. But there's also another way, that's going with the flavors. But then you can also contrast that. There's other ways to think about this, right? What about something more sessionable, like a mild ale that is, sweet but more lighthearted and enduring to kind of keep you refreshed as you're reading this big, heavy thing. Yeah. So it's not always about doing likes with likes, right? I mentioned the Botanic Garden and the Redwoods little forest they have down in this canyon there. And it's like, obviously you think, oh yeah, you do an imperial red. It's redwoods, big red. And then certainly I have done that pairing before. This event is now in its 6th or 7th year. And what happens is a lot of times if I do that, I'll place it at the top of the canyon. So you're drinking that beer as you're walking down. But then once you get into the canyon and you're underneath the whole forest and the canopy of these big, tall, looming redwoods, I'll hit them with I've done a sour with a little bit of ginger in it. So, almost like a Berliner Weiss. And what you're trying to do with that is, I didn't know until I started working with the gardens, is wild sorrel and lemongrass grows around the base of these trees. So you're drawing attention to this little botanic element with the lemongrass flavor, the ginger, but then what you're trying to capture mood-wise is actually not the trees themselves, but that feeling that the sun gets on your skin as it's shining through the canopy, and that combination of the warmth of the sun and the cool of the shade. And so, it's not always like with likes.
Wow.
And that's where you get into the expressionism element of it. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
It's going haywire here. This is great.
Yeah.
Man, when I don't have anything to say, it's bad.
I know. We're usually super chatty and and I'm just like, this is awesome. This is like stuff I wish I'd known sooner.
Well, and that's trying to get the word out about this. Yeah. What were you saying?
No, go Zach. Keep going.
Keep going, man.
No, that's and I actually during this whole thing I have been working on a book on this because it's like I've now been working about 8-9 years in these kind of pairings, and so I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned a lot of lessons, and so trying to put these in writing because I want to see everybody working with this kind of stuff. It gets a little lonely. Just there's a few others I know about certainly doing this kind of work, but really trying to because I think this is where beer ultimately is going, is that yes, the food pairing is great and that really talks to the masses. There's a lot to be said there, but to really be that far reaching audience, but also looking at how we bring beer into the 21st century and where it's getting more than just like, oh yeah, all the new hops coming out, all the new grains, which are fascinating, which are exciting. I love all the new hops coming out and the new grains and the stuff happening with yeast. It's super exciting. But I think ultimately, we're going to be focusing not just on what's in the glass, but how we experience what's in the glass and staring into that conversation, and whether it's through food, but also combining food with music, with art, with basically our environment. which is a little bit what I'm working on right now. This is my first year not working on the Botanic Garden. It's now become the #1 event they do. We raised tens of thousands of dollars for the garden in a 4-hour event. I could not be, we have an amazing committee who makes that happen. Could not be more honored to have helped create something that we have people fly out of the state to attend. It's been recreated at a couple different botanic gardens now. That's awesome. But now that I've been with it, I just kind of want to let it exist so that it can continue to exist without me. And I put Justin Kreider is an amazing certified Cicerone. He might even be advanced now, I can't remember, but he's Santa Barbara based too, so he shadowed me for 1 year and started taking over. So trying to keep it in good hands, but then I'm working on basically a whole new range of projects and work.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But hold on, I need to make a point here.
Yes.
And my point here is this. What I love about you, Zach, one of the many things I love about you, but the main thing I love about you is that there's a couple other ones too, or not a couple other ones, but I mean a couple other people who do it, but you take beer to an intellectual science level that people can't even I'm a science beer guy, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around what you're talking about right now. So you take beer to such an intellectual science, wonderful area, and you take it out of this whole Bud Light guy. I need 18 beers, and I'm gonna go home and slam 15 of them. And the whole beer, there's a beer shaming. Again, it's not that bad in life. There's so much worse shaming in the world. And I'm not really bitching about it. I'm just saying there's a beer shaming aspect of people who think this beer is just frat boy kegs. There's nothing behind it. There's no science behind it. There's no culture behind it. It's just drunk idiots screaming and hollering. And in my opinion, man, you're literally doing the work that is showing people that beer is just, if you want to take it there, it is another intellectual level. It is society all day long. It is just everything, and you're accenting that in a way that I don't think people aren't making those connections. Like, damn, he's really making beer intellectual, but you're really making beer intellectual, brother, and I love that. And I don't know if you want to respond to that, but I do want to make sure that we have to get to what you're doing currently. And I don't even know this. You sent it to me. We need to know more about beer-reticle technologies.
Beer-reticle technologies, yeah. Kind of like theoretical, but of course beer.
Right. Of course, I can't even pronounce the fucking shit he's working on.
Yeah. When I went forward with that name, I was like, of course, I'm just going to make it convoluted and way too many letters. But it's just I just love the term. Yeah, beer-reticle.
Yes.
It's like doing I did Scotch full of yours. That doesn't make any sense either, but I like it.
It's all about what works for you, right? It's all about your own style. Yeah.
Can I circle back on your point there, Greg, real quick, where you're saying about taking the beer to an intellectual level? But to me, he's not just doing that. He's taking the emotional and the intellectual part, kind of putting them together. Because when you talk about things like movies and music, all that stuff is emotional. And it's almost like having an emotional intelligence about how to pair things together. If that makes any sort of sense.
Zach, I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Well, and it's kind of to riff off of both of what you guys said, certainly I did my chemical engineering degree, had that science background, but I grew up in a family of artists. I'm like a 5th, 6th generation artist or something like that, where both my parents are artists. They had an art studio in the house that I grew up in. And so we had a silk screen shop, a paper mill, and we, did sculpting and painting. And so I worked at their company until I was 18. I started working for them when I was 5. And so even though I have this science background, my grandma was a cookbook author and food writer, and so was friends with Julia Child, knew MFK Fisher, and wrote on food for 40 years. And so I was kind of raised in this a little bit of this weird world between of like, living this kind of bohemian art lifestyle and then being drawn towards, the science and some of the technical mechanical things too. And so, I went to school for science, and it was kind of funny that my art side, growing up in an art world, I kind of try to put that down. And then, as I did more and more science, it just kept coming up and flaring up in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of Zach, man, real quick. I think of you as an art guy. I really it fascinates me a lot that when I know that me and you've had this conversation before, and I know I've heard your background. But again, when you're at a beer blogger conference and it's beer all day, every day, you forget stuff. You forget, and the best part about it is coming back next year. Yeah, the next part of that, coming back next year and you almost refine people. You almost I hear Zach's story again, but I don't remember that. Zach, man, again, to me, you're an artist. You're not a scientist. Sorry. I mean, I know you're a scientist, but you're an artist. Yeah. So the fact that you don't have any, that's all genes and from your family and from your upbringing, it's just amazing. I don't know. I'm not creative. I say that I'm not creative, and Doug and I not Doug and I fight, but some people and I close to me fight. I do not fight about it, but I've been called out by Paige. She called me out when I say I'm not creative, and she's like, "Yeah, stop." But I think it's just levels, and I think, you know what I mean. I'm inspired by people who are fucking creative, and you're fucking creative. So to hear that again, that comes from genes and stuff. On some level, I'm like, yeah, because I don't got those genes, so it's easy for me to be like, yeah, whatever. But no, on some level though, it's like, man, I could see and feel that. And Doug was shaking his head a little bit. We'll let you finish, but Doug was shaking his head when I said, I see you as an artist more than a scientist. What do you have to say about that quick? Oh, you okay?
I thought you were going to wait for Zach to answer, so sorry.
No. You and then we'll get
the thing that I was trying to get at was that the artistry portion of it is very prevalent. And it's not that the fact that you know so much about the scientific elements of it actually makes it easier for you to see the artistic part and how that affects mood and how you're going to create a mood with a beer and a scene or a beer and a song, and understanding the mechanics of how that beer is made and the chemistry that goes into it, I think plays into that. And, that's part of why you're excellent at what you do.
Well, and I think we all have varying ranges of creativity, and like anything, it's about practice. But it really is. It's I love the term polymath because it's about learning a little bit about everything. You don't need to be an expert at all these things. And I mentioned a book I'm writing. Not just I'm not going just into the palette. I'm going into simple art comprehension and visual literacy. How does line and curvature play into how we interpret things? I studied during my degree. I did a whole summer and a bunch of classes in classical archaeology. And so spent a summer in Greece, going around with a professor, studying archaeological sites, looking at the different ruins and all those things. And then that plays into now, when I write on, Sumerian beer culture, Egyptian beer culture, I have textbooks on these things, and I have a little bit of experience writing on the academic level about archaeology or humanities, and, a little background in how to interpret these subjects. Not an expert at it, but, enough to kind of get me by and give me a good grasp on everything, which, leads to my studio where I'm at right now. I'm an artist in residence at the Santa Barbara Center for Art, Science, and Technology called SBCast. And so it's a live workspace. So I have my studio here, and then there's a whole workshop downstairs that has 3D printers, a laser cutter, there's material storage. We do events. So Shakespeare was held here the last time I did it. And so I really am setting up the entire 200-person event right in my front yard, which is pretty unique. And we have whole stadium seating on site that you can set up. We have a whole lighting system. So that gives me all this freedom to do this kind of work and have all these resources at hand. And with, this facility, is it not, it's about this fusion. It's not about just art or just science or just technology. It's about how you blend all of these together, which is, really what my, the theoretical technologies is going to be about. And that is, so once again, as I've been thinking about beer, in reaction engineering, you think about the interfaces. So where are these reactions happening when you're talking about multiple states, right? You have a liquid and a solid interacting. Where is that reaction happening? So to apply that to beer, where are the reactions in beer happening? Well, they happen with your glassware, your coaster, your chair, the room environment. And so how do you decipher these? How do you look into these different systems that are all feeding into your interpretation of that beer? And then how do you redesign these objects to go and curate the beer drinking experience by basically every factor? And so this is ranging from, smart coasters to a smart chair, to a whole different one of the things you have to understand. This is about 3 years of intellectual property, so I'm not showing a lot. I'm about to go live with stuff. I'm getting closer, but one of the things I'm working on, taking a step away from the botanic gardens, is I'm designing artificial plants, kind of robotic plants that I will design as planters. And so people can rent them out. I'll roll them and set them up in their event, and they're sensory plants. So people can take their beer around them and interact with these plants in a different way. And so it's just an art installation that goes into other people's events. You're just bringing in an environment. So I have like one little piece, if you can kind of see, this is a little flower bud. And so this is just using a white little LED. And then you can see, I'm doing heat bending on fiber optics to carry the light. Mm-hmm. And so what I've done is designed about a dozen simple circuits, and I'm integrating them into these, multi-material artificial flowers that have a little bit of 3D printed parts, hiding all the circuitry, but then I'm also showing it. I'm not trying to make it look like a real plant. You're understanding that it's a robotic plant, but then these things can, I've hacked into ultrasonic humidifier, one of those, you use for aromatherapy. You just put the essential oils in there. So imagine a little flower that as you get close to it or as you speak a certain level can start jetting aromas at you. And so those begin this dialogue, and then they can change color based off of how you're interacting and how you're behaving around these plants. So you create an environment that is interactive and can speak in a pairing level that goes beyond just what the flavors are, is going with your behavior with your glass and how you behave around your environment.
Yeah, that's Craig. I'm with Craig on that one. That's just beyond awesome. I do have a question for you, Zach, though, about so you were talking about like Sumerian beer culture and Egyptian beer culture.
Yeah.
It made me think of the Dogfish Head brewery that was doing all the ancient breweries.
Like ancient hills, yeah, Patrick McGovern.
Have you had a chance to try any of those? What are your thoughts on it?
I think I have tried a lot of them, not all of them. It's like I love Dogfish Head because they know how to tell a story, and these are all about stories. Not all stories you enjoy as much as others. But I love conceptually and story-wise. I mean, I think they're brilliant. I have a bunch of Patrick McGovern's books. I love his work, and I think ultimately, you're trying to bring this story to life. How much that reflects what was happening at that time, I don't know how close to that mark you can get, and you can never quite understand or never quite really know. So I think as far as the story goes, amazing. Whether it reflects what they were really like, who knows, right? But yeah. I love the story being told.
Yeah, because obviously we're a little more advanced in the way of processing those things now than they were then.
Yeah.
So, obviously, it's not going to be exact, but I kind of think it's cool that those guys decided to do something that was like, let's see if we can't recreate these old recipes and see how that goes. And just that's a creative part of it too, is just being like, I'm going to try this old thing that nobody's done in millennia, and we'll see how it turns out. That takes a lot of creativity and a lot of nuts. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta get back to what you were talking about before Doug asked that last question. So no worries. It took me a little while to wrap my head about what the fuck he was just saying. Actually, like
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. So I'm still kind of dumbfucked about it, but and I don't know if it's gonna, Doug. This is kind of gonna be one of those things that's gonna take me a couple of days about fucking. I mean, what did I just say?
Yeah.
Anyway, Zach.
Yeah.
What does this? So, it's going to take me a while to figure out what you were talking about. I'm not joking. And that it's fantastic. It's great. It sounds like a really, really fun project. Where can we follow this? And is this something that it's evolving? I hear. So yeah, where can we follow it? And what's the news about it? Because I'm just going to want to jump in after. Is there a website already, or we still working on that, or what's going on?
Yeah, so, ZachRosenBeer.com is my main site that kind of links to my other one, my writing under pairbeer.com, and then, my Beeretical Technologies website. I'm a lot better at the creative stuff than I am at the updating things, but, certainly follow me on, like, Instagram or Facebook. My Instagram handle, I think both my Instagram and Facebook are The Beer Guy Life, because, my main writing in Santa Barbara, I go by The Beer Guy. For the local publications. And so, that I usually am posting little snippets of these things on Instagram. I have to admit I've kept a lot of it kind of close to me because some of it is, represents a lot of thought that's gone into this stuff. So there's, until I'm ready to fully go. And also from the art direction, it's like, as a writer, you never want to show people your rough draft, right? I at least get sensitive about that. Yeah. It's like, wait, not done yet. I know that's wrong. Yeah. So,
Zach, when I was a blogger, I never, even the final draft, I didn't want to hit publish on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every time I read one of my pieces, like, wait, I wrote that?
Right. That's why I can just get on and flub things live, and then people think less of it because it's live. But
yeah.
So Zach, is that the right? Do I have the right tag there?
The right which?
Yeah, the right thing at the bottom there.
Yeah, on the. Is that the right?
Oh no. Guy, like I'm a guy.
Guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get that right now.
Yeah.
And then we can make sure we are done.
Yeah, because like I talk about beer to people and like they wouldn't remember my name. They're like, "Wait, you're that beer guy, right?" So when I started, it made sense to go with that because it's like, look, I'm that beer guy.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you're right. Man, so yeah. Next week though, I'm gonna have a guy that's almost as sciencey as you are on the show in 2 weeks. I guess I could say because we've confirmed, but Marshall Shot from the Beerosophy,
Nice.
Beerology. Anyway, he does a lot of science too. Again, I love when beer guys make it about science. I love it. I just can't say enough about it. So when are we going to hear more about your latest project? Because that is just, again, I'm on it. I want to know when I'm going to hear more. And you said if I go to ZachRosen.com, I can find this, right? Or Zach Rosen Beer.
ZachRosenBeer.com. Yeah. Under, I just have like I think a link saying other site. So, that's my general site that is bio, the services I offer. And then I have, a writing site and the Beeretical site. Yeah.
So then my point is that when anything drops as far as news for that goes, I'll be able to find it. You're gonna put it there now. Or between it, cool.
It's gonna be going through a big update soon. Yeah, because it's like I've done a year of prototyping. I'm almost there, but probably, especially the quarantine's been a good time to just like stay quiet and work on all this stuff. So I've made a lot of progress, and probably within the next month, I'm hoping you'll start seeing some of the projects fully displayed and live.
Well, if you can't tell, I'm just a touch excited about it. So.
Just a smidge.
Just a smidge. Man. Hey, Doug, you got anything else for Zach, or we can let him roll?
Yeah, it is like we go like 8 hours with this.
No, and that's why, right?
That's the thing. There's so much. You don't really have a boundary that we can be like, oh, we're sticking it in.
No.
That's been the great part about this. Is just
it's all beer, man. Yeah.
No, but it's beer, it's culture, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a real Zach, man. Unfortunately, Doug couldn't be any further from you, to be honest with you. Like geographically, Doug is East Upper New York State, so he is.
Yep.
Yeah, so he is. I mean, it doesn't get any further from you, and I'm a little bit closer. But man, I can't wait till we're out of this because again, people are going to be running to do your shit because I would almost run from here, and I don't run to go hang out with you and do something in the botanical gardens for 4 hours with some beer and around people. And man, I can't say enough about the wonderful creative work you do, and also again, you're doing it. You're bringing people in beer in such a very subtle way. It's almost like they don't even know that you're like Zach is working on them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't even know like the level, because I didn't know today that all the science that Zach brings, especially to the botanical garden thing. I've heard that before. He was talking about the botanical garden thing last year at the beer blogger thing, but I just didn't understand the level of like not only science but thought that you put into it and the beer pairings. And again, Zach, kudos, man. I just can't say enough about what you're doing, and I can't scream and holler enough about how much I think you're cool.
Well, thanks, guys, and yeah, thanks so much for having me. And all the new stuff, I'm designing the travel. So once this all gets lifted, maybe I'll come out to you. Yeah.
Yes, buddy. Yes, and I'm still I love my graphic designer, but he's a little bit behind. But we're still going to do that Beers Life shirt. I'm working on, or Beer Pairs with Life shirt. I'm still working on it. I'm gonna reach out to you soon. I mean, that's all your quotes, so I gotta use your quote, I gotta use your name, and I need your permission to do it all. So I'm not gonna steal you. But also, you're again creatively. I need you in that project too. So make sure that everything looks good, because I'm not that guy.
We're all figuring it out as we go.
Right. You may actually, Zach. I don't know. I'm not sure. You may not be that guy as far as like clothes and all that. But because again, creativity is, it's kind of like, as you said, man. Everybody has different levels on different things. So, but I just wanted to thank you again. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there that we missed that we could cover in like a half an hour?
I think that's good. Yeah, I had fun blathering on about beer, and thanks so much for having me, guys. And yeah, cheers till the next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Zach, you're fantastic. I'm sorry, you go, Doug, and I'll wrap.
No, I was going to say thanks again for being on and just broadening our minds. Like again, it's so easy, especially in these trying times, to to borrow a phrase that everybody uses. It's really easy to get really blinders and straightforward and not think of possibilities of things. So, and you bring that, and I appreciate you being on and showing us that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, and you're a great ambassador for beer, man. And I love you, Zach. Take care, buddy.
Love you too, brother. All right, see you guys.
Exactly. Cheers. I'm sure you had no beer.
Oh,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What'd you say?
I said I ran out of beer. I drank no beer.
Yeah, bad luck.
Oh, okay. All right, Zach. See you next time.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, see you guys.
See ya.
So, number one, we got to have Zach on Friday. But also, but he's one of these guests that I don't know. I had 2 beers before he was even it was like a half an hour, and I already had my beers.
Yeah, I had 2 beers, and granted, I was done. I was done after 35 minutes with the 2 beers, but he's just fascinating. I don't know what other word you can put with him, because just his view on everything. It's just. It's so much broader than I think, and I just love that. It's made me realize, I should really not be so small-minded about things. So yeah,
Right. Or let Zach be big-minded about it, and then we can just hang out with Zach and like he'll rub off on us.
yeah, maybe get it through osmosis or something.
But again, no, I can't say enough, man. The science mixing with the beer. I mean, again, once I met Zach, I was like, man, this guy has my heart forever because again, it's that intellectual part of beer that I love the most. And it's just like again, the dummies about beer kind of give it a bad name, and Zach has been striving for a long time to, this isn't something that like he takes on, but this is clearly something that he's doing and it's working. So Doug, I am, I don't know, after this weekend, we had a good week to start, so I'm good. Weekend was kind of...
Yeah, well, you know what my weekend was. It was all outside in the heat and in the sun, so yeah.
Right. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this before we get the hell out of here.
Yes, man. So I'm super excited about this because this goes out a little bit out of our normal realm of where we talk to like beer people or people in the beer culture. Renee is a writer and an editor and an advocate and a military vet and
activist and podcaster,
a million things, and has fantastic hair to boot. So like
badass.
Right. She's gonna be so much fun, and she, we're just gonna bullshit with her about books and writing and then beer and all that stuff, man. It's gonna be great because it's just gonna be a little bit different than what we normally have, but I think having a little variance there is a good thing.
Yes, hell, Zach is a little different, and he was even trying just a little different. But no, Renee is gonna be fun, and this is for everybody knows this is a guest that Doug booked, so it's going to be great. Every one of your guests have been fantastic, and the ones that suck are my fault. I got it. All right, Doug. So actually, I'm doing a Meet the Brewers series, or I'm sorry, I'm doing a craft beer business series where I talk to people who are in craft beer about what's going on in the business. And tomorrow I'm talking to two of the big head honchos over at the Wisconsin's Brewers Guild in the afternoon. So that'll be fun to figure out what the hell's going on here and the lay of the land. But then I will see you on Friday with Renee. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man.
So
great.
Thanks, Doug, for your time, and thanks for helping me stay focused when I fanboy over a guest like I did today.
Hey, that was hard. Like there were a couple times we were both like, I don't even know how to follow that up.
Yeah, and a lot of times I would put the thing on Zach, and I'd be like, "What the hell?" I can't even I couldn't even wrap my head around what he was talking about to even ask a follow up. So I don't know if everybody or you guys didn't see it, but I was telling Doug, I was like, "Doug, you got the follow up." Because I don't even have a question here that's going to sound cool.
Yeah.
It was great. So, Doug, I'll see you on Friday. And I'll see you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So, cheers.
Cheers.